reason for it. Who shot Ashli Babbitt? It's got to be released. And how come so many people are still in jail over January 6th when nobody paid a price for the fire and carnage and death that took place in Democrat-run cities throughout our country, including Antifa and BLM? How come? How come?
All right, this weekend in Sarasota, Florida, former President Trump Save America rally. He asked what many have been wondering: who shot Ashli Babbitt during the January 6th riots? President Trump also took the time to condemn the detained protesters and at the same time calling out last summer's BLM riots. Here are his thoughts on that.
And by the way, who shot Ashli Babbitt? Who shot Ashli Babbitt? Who? Who shot Ashli Babbitt? We all saw the hand. We saw the gun.
All right, joining us now to discuss her tweet and this Saturday's rally, Julie Kelly, columnist at American Greatness and the author of Disloyal Opposition: How the Never Trump Right Tried and Failed to Take Down the President. Okay, let's, Julie, give me your thoughts on the president's visit to Sarasota on Saturday. How would you sum it up, and what kind of grade would you give him?
Well, I'm not very good at giving grades, but I will give him an A+ for calling out, finally, the plight of dozens of detained January 6th protesters, many who are first-time offenders, because Joe Biden's Justice Department is repeatedly asking the courts to keep these people behind bars awaiting delayed trials that may not start until early next year. And so this is something that we did not see with the protesters from last year, including very violent rioters and people assaulting police officers, committing all sorts of crimes, yet they are free. They actually were bailed out by celebrities, and now we have dozens of people languishing in jail for months on end, awaiting trials for their participation, some nonviolent participation in January 6th.
All right. I wanted to look at a tweet that you put out, reaction to the former president's speech. You wrote, finally, good for Trump for publicly condemning the plight of detained January 6 protesters and the hypocrisy, by the way, handling of J6 protesters in 2020 rioters, and the silence of McConnell et al. This is becoming a big issue for the base. GOP leaders ignore at their peril. Let's talk about that peril, Julie, because it seems like the Trump base is still there, still solid, he's still the most popular part of that party. Yet you have other people who need to get elected with their support, but maybe those people can't get their America First candidates elected by themselves in a general election. How do they get along? Because it seems like they're butting heads sometimes.
I mean, it was great to see him call out Mitch McConnell and other Republican leaders who've been silent on this issue and other issues. Look, they have gone along with the idea that January 6th was this deadly insurrection, that it was the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, as Joe Biden has said. But as we keep exposing, a lot of the early narrative was completely false. And unfortunately, so many Republicans, including Mitch McConnell, went along with this. And he's raising a very important question. Who did shoot Ashli Babbitt? Why don't we know the name of that federal officer? U.S. Capitol Police is a federal agency. Why do we not know who shot her? So he continues to speak for millions of Americans who are very frustrated, not just with what's going on with the Biden regime, but the Republican leadership as well.
Yeah, let's bring in Joe DiGenova and Victoria Toensing and talk about that. The president, no question, is speaking on behalf of millions of Americans. We see quite a few of them out there in Sarasota. We know he has a strong base throughout the country, and he gives voice to those people. How do they get along with the Republican Party so they actually together can take back Congress and possibly the White House in 2024? Joe, I'll ask you first.
Yeah, well, they better get along, because if they don't, they're going to give the Democrats more seats in the House and more seats in the Senate. This is pretty simple stuff. This is like Allen West challenging Abbott in Texas. It's dumb. You don't need this type of internecine warfare. You need to be unified. And people who don't get that are going to make the same mistake they made in Georgia when the 2 senators were up in the special election. This is very dangerous territory. People need to think and act like adults. And if they don't, they're going to lose big in 22.
So, Joe, what are you suggesting? Go ahead, Victoria. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You just can't keep or prohibit a democratic citizenry from discussing an important issue.
Right.
These people were all pent up, as has been done in the 2020 election, and I'm glad we're going to address it in the last segment. I mean, I put out a tweet that I had a declaration that said that they were cheating in Detroit, and Jack put up that it was in dispute. No, it wasn't. I had the declaration in my hand. Look, these people were unsophisticated. They would have been much better off singing the national anthem outside of Congress, but they didn't do that. But they also didn't burn down black businesses or murder a David Dern. And so it's a disgrace that they are still in jail.
And they didn't have AK-47s and AR-15s, you know. So that would have been a different one. So, Julie, what do we learn from Saturday night with the president? Obviously, his appeal is still there. He's still the most important voice in the party.
He absolutely is. I don't think there's any question about that. I would like to see him use his platform to push forward on especially what happened on January 6th, raising those questions, exposing what happened that day, and calling out the Republican leadership, not just for their cowardice on January 6th, but on so many issues. So obviously he still has a very loyal following. Tens of millions of Americans look to him not just to speak the truth, but also to defend America. You know, we saw all of these tweets this weekend, including from congressmen, congresswomen, condemning America. One of Trump's biggest appeals is that he speaks for our love for this country. And I think that's his most powerful message. And I'd like to hear him continue to say that and drown out these negative voices that seem to be winning the day on what America is about.
Yeah, and Joe, Donald Trump came along and gave voice to a lot of people in the country that did not have that voice. I think they still feel they don't have it in the traditional Republican Party.
And they're absolutely right. They don't. And that's why Donald Trump is so important. And let me just say, let me congratulate Julie Kelly on her amazing reporting on what went on January 6th. And the question, who killed Ashli Babbitt, needs to be addressed. It is a firestorm out there among people who care about the rule of law. And it is despicable that the officer who killed her, whether it was justified or not, and apparently to me it was not justified, it needs to continue. And the president, the former president, President Trump, needs to continue to raise that issue. Who killed Ashli Babbitt? We need bumper stickers, flags, signs, and billboards that ask that question. Who killed Ashli Babbitt? What is the name of the Capitol Police officer who murdered her?
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.